This video is brought to you by Henson Shaving. For decades, North Korea has pursued a policy of almost complete self-isolation. However, the country appears to be entering something of a new era, with a budding relationship between fellow autocrats Kim Jong-un and Russian President Vladimir Putin that's not just resulted in weapons transfers from North Korea to Russia for its war in Ukraine, but also the provision of as many as 12,000 North Korean troops. So in this video, we'll take a look at the history of North Korean isolationism, why Kim is now buddying up to Putin, and how this emerging relationship might impact North Korea's economy. But before we start, you'll see on our brand new poster, Every Global Alliance Explained, that North Korea is one of just a few countries to exist outside of every major global alliance, apart from the UN. The posters are available by clicking the link in the description, and for a limited time, you can get 20% off with the code United Nations. Anyway, let's start with the context. After World War II, Korea was split into two, the Soviet-controlled North and the US-controlled South, and by 1948, they were two separate countries. Then in 1950, with backing from China, North Korea attacked South Korea, kicking off the Korean War, which lasted for about the next 3 years and devastated both countries' economies. After the war, North Korea's government made a concerted effort to isolate itself from the rest of the world. From the 1950s onwards, under North Korea's first leader, Kim Il-sung, North Korea followed a philosophy known as Juche, or self-reliance, which aimed to develop North Korea's economy, military and politics with little or no help from foreign countries. That said, Juche didn't rule out economic cooperation between socialist states, and in fact, this was key to North Korea's post-war development through the 1950s and 60s, as loans and large amounts of aid from other communist countries, notably the Soviet Union and China, helped it rebuild its economy through the collectivization of agriculture and the development of heavy industry. Until the mid-1960s, North and South Korea's economies were closely matched, but after this they took drastically different paths, with North Korea aligning itself to China and the Soviet Union, and South Korea aligning itself to the US. North Korea's self-reliant economy began to stagnate in the 1970s, partly due to a growing trade dependency and reliance on foreign imports. And then, from the mid-1980s, North Korea was forced to soften its Juche policy, accepting foreign direct investment and opening the country to tourism and economic cooperation with South Korea. At this point, North-South Korean relations were improving somewhat, and in 1991, both countries were simultaneously admitted to the UN. However, after 1991 and the dissolution of the Soviet Union, North Korea was left with only China as an ally, and its economy, which had been heavily dependent on Soviet aid, almost totally collapsed, with a mass famine between 1994 and 1998 leading to the deaths of as many as 420,000 North Koreans. In the 21st century, however, North Korea has aligned itself more closely with Russia and has taken an increasingly hostile posture towards the West. In a 2002 speech, US President George Bush first included North Korea in the so-called Axis of Evil, alongside Iran and Iraq, and the US began treating North Korea as a rogue state. Through the 2000s, North Korea stepped up its nuclear weapons efforts. In 2010, it sank a South Korean ship and also shelled a South Korean island. These military shows of power continued until a diplomatic breakthrough in 2018. But unfortunately, this was short-lived, and since the start of 2023, North Korea has again been ramping up its ballistic missile tests. Earlier this year, North Korea also formally abandoned the aim of eventual reconciliation and reunification with the South, and designated South Korea as the enemy. At the same time, since Putin's invasion of Ukraine in 2022, North Korea has sought closer ties with Russia. Since the war left Russia cut off from the West, Putin has turned to Kim Jong-un for military support, and North Korea has been supplying artillery shells and weapons for Russia's war effort. It's not just weapons though, as North Korea is now also supplying manpower, having last week sent thousands of North Korean troops to Russia, disguised with fake Russian passports and uniforms to help Russia retake Kursk, at least according to Western intelligence. North Korea and Russia have also been ramping up their diplomatic exchanges over the past 18 months. In June, Russian President Vladimir Putin visited North Korean capital Pyongyang for the first time in 24 years to sign a comprehensive strategic partnership treaty with Kim Jong-un, who said North Korea-Russia relations were entering a period of new high prosperity. So, what's with this budding partnership? Well, unsurprisingly, one clear beneficiary is the North Korean economy. Since the mid-1990s, as a result of its self-isolation, North Korea has faced chronic food shortages and economic stagnation. And in the 2024 Index of Economic Freedom, North Korea was given a score of 2.9 out of 100, making it the most repressed economy in the world. While its domestic agricultural production has improved in recent years, it still falls far short of producing enough food for its population, an estimated 60% of whom live in absolute poverty. So in the past few years, but particularly since the pandemic, when Russia provided food and energy to North Korea's suffering economy, the two countries have been making deals with each other that evade international sanctions. The Atlantic Council calls this emerging trade a common market of autocracies, and argues that by urgently providing each other with direct assistance on specific things, for example, North Korea providing Russia with half of all artillery shells it's using in Ukraine, or Russia providing technological expertise for North Korea's space program, they can help each other sustain themselves and reach their immediate aims without having to rely on other countries. Not even their ally China, which has already indicated it doesn't want to be the third wheel in this relationship. Now, whilst it's hard to measure the direct economic impact, as the North Korean state doesn't publish official data, the Bank of Korea does, and it estimated that, in 2023, North Korean GDP likely surged 3.1% in real terms, the biggest percentage growth since 2016. Then on the Russian side, and for more on this you should watch our recent video, Russia's economy is faring better in the face of sanctions than many Western politicians expected, in part thanks to this new North Korean partnership. So what impact is this likely to have? Well, in the short term, it's likely to continue serving both North Korea and Russia's immediate aims, as the former desperately needs support economically and the latter needs it militarily. It could also spur the US, Japan and South Korea to strengthen their military alliance in East Asia, which could in turn further anger China, which wants to avoid a new Cold War at all costs. Moreover, as some commentators have pointed out, Western analysts have previously underestimated Russian aggression and should be cautious of doing the same with North Korea. In the past couple of years, Kim has clearly been ramping up his displays of aggression towards the south, and could be hoping that, by supporting Russia against Ukraine, Putin might one day return the favour in the event of a conflict on the Korean peninsula. Putin and Kim may be close, but nothing comes as close as a Henson shave. If you're sick of the gimmicks other shaving brands use, the subscriptions, moisturising strips, lasers, whatever, then you'll need to check out Henson. Because, and here's the dirty secret about the razor industry, even the cheapest dollar store disposable razors will likely give you a reasonably smooth shave. The challenge is the impact they'll have on your skin. To protect your skin while shaving, you need to actually support the blade well, and Henson can provide that quality shave even with cheap blades, thanks to the Henson razor, which they produce at their aerospace machine shop, which also produces parts for the ISS, and perfectly holds the blade at a 30-degree angle and extends it only 0.0013 inches, less than the width of a human hair. In classic TLDR style, that's important for 3 reasons. Firstly, it's way cheaper. Those fancy blade cartridges aren't necessarily designed to provide a better shaving experience. They're about jacking up prices. Instead, Henson's razor takes standard blades that cost just 10 cents each, meaning that while the initial handle might be more expensive, in the long run you'll save a ton of cash. Secondly, it's far better for the environment to be using individual blades than joining the 2 billion razor cartridges thrown away every year in the US alone, with Henson's products containing no plastic at all, even in their packaging. Finally, this superb engineering and precise blade tech just provides an incredible shave. If you want to try it out, click the link in the description, then add a razor and 100 blades to your cart. Then once you've done that, add our discount code TLDR at checkout and you'll get all of those blades totally free.